Hi there. My name's Will Fieldhouse, and I'm a writer, and wanted to speak to you today concerning the Ethnic Reconciliation Project that Hilton and Dr. Vida Watiram have begun, in particular to do with how the gospel impacts on ethnic reconciliation. So I think there's a couple of different ways of defining identity. There's the world's way, and then there's God's way, and they're different. And we have grown accustomed to buying into the world's way of defining identity, and that's, I believe, what causes a lot of the problems with ethnic division. And I think one of the solutions to this can be by applying the God's way of understanding identity instead. So the world's way of, well, first let me say I think there's two kinds of identity I'd like to talk about. One is political identity, the state or the political construct that we consider ourselves part of. It's obviously a very world structure. And then the second one is our fundamental identity. Who are we really? Who are we actually? And the world's way of understanding this is that our fundamental nature is ethnic. And that's who we are. Because, of course, it tells us we're animals. We're evolved. And so then we can define ourselves all as different species of animals. And then, therefore, that arguably becomes your fundamental identity. That's a lie. It's a lie from the devil. It's not true. It's a deception. And then the world says our political identity, however, is not that. That's something that's more artificial. That's something that can be constructed. So, for instance, let's look at the concept of the United States of America. So it's a world structure, and the ideology there is quite worldly. So they would say that their political identity is that they're Americans, and say they come from the state of Massachusetts. They'd say, I am a citizen of Massachusetts, and that's something that I can change. I could move somewhere else. I could be a citizen of some other country. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts is a created structure that we as human beings have made. We've made a bunch of rules, a legal structure, and we've made that, and we decided to buy into that political structure. However, they would, I believe, in many ways, and this is the world's understanding, they would say their fundamental identity is not as a citizen of Massachusetts. That's a more superficial thing. Their fundamental identity is that they are of a certain ethnicity. And this arguably is one of the reasons why race and ethnicity has become such a problem and a dividing point in the US, because they tend to, as part of the ideology of the United States, feel their fundamental identity is ethnic. It's not. So that's the world's way of looking at things. God's way is the opposite. It's the exact opposite. It says, when it comes to politics, the Bible only ever discusses nations as ethnic. That is a nation. It's an extension of a family. That's an extension of a patriarch. It talks about the nation of Israel as Israel. Israel is the name of a man, Israel, who was originally called Jacob. And so God, when he talks about nations, he doesn't talk about any artificial legal structure. He talks about the descendants of a patriarch. Literally, it's the same word. He to refer to Moab, or the Edomites. That's a nation in the Bible. They're descended from Edom. That's a person. So that is the Bible's definition of political structure, and it can't be changed particularly. We're all members of a nation, and those nations are descended from a patriarch, and those patriarchs were men, And actually, every one of them originally was a child of Noah. And we're all descended from Noah, a patriarch. When we understand this, that our fundamental political, identity comes from the ethnic nation we're from, everything becomes a lot clearer and simpler, because that's a reality. We all have patriarchs that we're descended from, and also we're all equal in that. Everyone's family and ethnicity. I'm an historian, and I'm interested in genealogy, and everyone's personal family history, their national history, is equally valid and interesting to them. They're more interested in their own ethnic history, and it's passionate to them. And other people who are descended from different patriarchs, they tend to be different, interested in those patriarchs and their history. But they're all equal. It doesn't matter what nation you're from. It's just we're members of a nation, and obviously we have different ethnicities, and people are blended together from different cultures. But understanding that political unit that we're part of according to the Bible is simply a family. It's simply a family. This artificial idea of state, the nation state, is actually not something that's biblical. We can't just construct a country and say we're now members of this because we're citizens of it. This is what it says in our passport. So that's our political identity according to the Bible. But even more important is what God says is our fundamental identity. Unlike, if you remember what the world's idea was that their political identity was an artificial structure, but their fundamental identity was ethnic. God says the exact opposite. Our political identity is ethnic, but our fundamental identity is something that we can choose. It's got nothing to do with our ethnic identity. That's a political thing. That's part of the world that exists, but it's got nothing to do with our fundamental core identity, who we are. That comes as a result of the choice of whether we want to be, of who we want to follow, essentially. And the Bible says we can follow Jesus Christ and share his fundamental destiny as a child of God in the New Jerusalem with God forever, or we can follow the devil and end up where the devil will end up, in hell, being tortured for eternity. Those are the choices we have, but they're our choice. God's given us that free choice. That's what makes us human and alive, different from the animals. We have free choice. We are human beings, and with that free choice we can choose to become part of the kingdom of light or part of the kingdom of darkness, and that's our fundamental identity. So the ethnic thing exists. It's important. It's for understanding the world we're in, the political world. Yes, it exists, but that's nothing to do with our fundamental identity. Our fundamental identity is spiritual, and we can affect that, and that's what matters. Thank you.